In the 1930s, Hyman Robert Levitan was growing up in Brooklyn. Known as Bob, he grew up to join the Merchant Marine. He trained at the New York Maritime Academy and spent World War II sailing on ships around the world. After the war, in 1947, he docked his ship in Norfolk, Virginia, flew up to New York to meet with his family, and while he was there, he bumped into a friend, a fellow cadet midshipman at the New York Maritime Academy. They had studied together years before. The friend tells him about a project that he's working on with an organization called Irgun to rescue displaced persons, Jewish refugees in Europe, Holocaust survivors, to bring them from Europe to Palestine to Israel. They had obtained a ship from under the flag of Honduras, a ship called the SS Abril, and they needed a navigator. And Bob Levitan was a navigator. And so the friend said, "Bob, can you help us?" And without hesitating, unflinching, Bob said, "I'm in." They put together a crew of 20 people. They take this ship and they modify the inside to fit 6 different rooms, giant rooms to hold 100 people each, with toilets, everything that they would need. The European refugees insisted on kosher food, and so they had a wealthy New York donor who provided 2,000 pounds of salami, and the cook had salami at every meal, salami and eggs, salami soup, salami sandwiches. They sailed across to the Azores to refuel. The captain leaves the ship, doesn't come back. The chief mate becomes the captain, and Bob, who was the navigator, becomes the chief mate. They continue on their way. They dock in France. They pick up the refugees. 600 European Jews, survivors, shuffle on board. Finally, with some hope of getting to the Holy Land. One of them was asked, "Why don't you just stay in Europe? You lived in Europe before the war. You can live in Europe after the war." They said, "The soil of Europe burns our feet. We can't stay." But the chief mate turned captain didn't show up. He stayed in France. And so Bob Levitan, our humble Jew from Brooklyn, navigator in the Merchant Marine, is faced with the choice. Should he take on the role of captain of the ship or walk away from this mission? And he says, "I'll be the captain." And so as the ship heads into its most dangerous stage, trying to break the British embargo of Palestine, it is captained by Bob Levitan. And he takes the ship down to through the Suez Canal towards Turkey, and then starts making a sharp left turn, 90-degree angle, heading straight for the coast of Akko. Pretty soon, they notice British helicopters circling overhead. 3 battleships from the Royal British Marines approach, and they yell out, "Where are you bound? Where are you heading?" And because the ship was under the Honduran flag, Levitan and his crew responded, "We're bound for Honduras." Of course, they weren't headed to Honduras. They were heading straight towards Israel. And they continued full speed ahead. An hour later, the Marines ask again, "Where are you bound?" And again they answer, "We're headed for Honduras." At this point, the British realized they weren't headed anywhere near Honduras. They were headed right for Palestine, for Israel. And so they forcibly rammed their battleships into the SS Abril, which was renamed the SS Ben Hecht for an American-Israeli activist. You could hear the steel railings crunching, the hull of the ship denting as the battleships rammed into it. Quickly, 220 Marines boarded the ship, took over the engine room, and took control. They took the ship to the pier off the port of Akko. And on the other side of the pier, they had a ship that was designed for holding prisoners. Its hull was a series of cages. And they took all the passengers out of the SS Ben Hecht, of this ship, marched them right across the pier. They didn't get to go into Israel, just stayed on the pier, into the hull of the prison ship, the ship with the cages, and that ship set sail for Cyprus. That was the passengers, but the crew, Bob Levitan and his band, they were taken to Acre prison, to the jail in Akko, for 30 days. They had one cell where they sat together. They had a garbage can, that was their toilet, that they emptied out every morning. And after that, they let them go, and they went back to Brooklyn, back to his life in the Merchant Marine. And a few months later, in 1948, the state of Israel was declared, and all the refugees in Cyprus were able to finally reach Eretz Yisrael. Years later, someone asked Bob, why'd you do it? You were never looking for glory. You had your life, everything in order. This was dangerous. This was illegal. And he said, growing up as a kid in the 30s and 40s, I would hear the horror stories of what was happening in Europe. And there was nothing I could do. And finally, someone knocked on my door with an opportunity to help, to do something. How could I say no? Hineni, I'm in. Moshe Rabbeinu was a humble shepherd, minding his own business, minding the sheep. And all of a sudden he is approached at the age of 80 years old. Here is a mission, should you choose to accept it, to take the Jews out of Mitzrayim to confront the mighty British Empire, the mighty Egyptian Empire. And Moshe remembers, as a young man, Vayar b'sivlosam, how he saw the pain, the suffering, and there was nothing he could do about it. And now, there's that opportunity. Moshe says, Hineni, I'm in. It's that kind of humble leadership, that humility, that sense of responsibility, that brings redemption. It's what brought redemption in the times of Moshe, and it's what brought the beginning of the redemption in the times of Bob Levitan. Reishis Tzmichas Geula Seinu. The Baal Simcha today is in the same mold. He's a humble person. He's diligent, he's disciplined, he's focused on his responsibilities. He comes to his daf yomi, he has his chavrusas at night, he's focused on his job, on his family. But the minute there is anything that the community, that the people, that the Jewish people around him need, whether it's the neighborhood, the shul, the wider community, you don't even finish your sentence before he says, I'm in. I'm doing it. I'm going to the store. I picked them up already. Oh, I don't need to go today. I already went. And that is the kind of role model for his daughter who's becoming a bas mitzvah. She is entering this type of family and this type of nation. And that's something that she and we can all strive for. To be humble. But to, with that humility, that sense of responsibility for everyone, for those around us. And when that opportunity knocks, and it will knock, to be able to jump and say, Hineni, I'm in. What can I do to help my people? And when each of us do that, if we bring our people closer together and closer to Geula, B'meher v'yameinu, amen.